Baseball, is it or is it not all about the money? Let's talk about that. Folks, welcome to the Baseball Brewhaha. Great to have you back again. Adam, before we dive in here, I got new swag to show off. You can probably tell here. I think I showed off our Yard Goats hat here a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Today, or this weekend,
Yes.
got our
Yes.
jerseys.
Loving the Yard Goats.
Love the Yard Goats. And I didn't even pick my number, but I was given number 16. Adam, why is 16 special?
16. That was my number in high school.
So my son got number 8. So 2 of him make 1 of me.
Yeah.
And I get to remember every time I put it on, I get to remember Adam.
Yeah.
It's a big time. I felt very privileged with my number selection.
And it's a great baseball number. It really is. Bo Jackson.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So we're in it. But we're not here to talk about my jersey.
No.
We are here to talk a little bit of baseball. And today we're talking about the money. Now, last week we left off, we were talking about are the Yankees, or maybe more in today's game in 2025, the Dodgers, good for baseball. Adam, have you had any other thoughts about that since we unpacked that whole situation?
I have. And
Okay.
unfortunately, they are thoughts that break my brain
Okay.
because where the question that we left off with is essentially if what would baseball be like if it wasn't capitalistic?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Right? What that was right. And
and capitalistic meaning essentially that you just let the market do its thing, you let people pay the high amount. We had discussions in there even asking the question, are the Rays, not the Dodgers, but are the Rays bad for baseball? We had some of that all in there.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Yeah. So I did think about this a lot for a few days, and then my brain got tired because baseball, as it exists, is a product of the financial system that it exists in.
Yeah. Okay.
And so in order for baseball to operate differently, our entire sort of financial structure within our country would have to be different, would either have to change or have been different from the get-go. And so that is where the brain starts to break.
So I want to get to, because there's some interesting conversations in baseball and philosophy book I'm going to get to that talks about this thing.
Okay.
Be interesting. So but now I'm trying to think okay, what different, what would it look like in a different system, like a different economic system?
Like socialism or communism or something?
Yeah, that's the only one I'm thinking of, because I feel like most economies are a free market largely. So how would it be different? How would it? Yeah. Do you have thoughts? Do you know?
Well, baseball was different for a while, for a long time, until free agency in the
Mm.
what, 70s and 80s.
So you have like a monarchy.
I it's almost um like a property ownership
Hmm.
type of model, where there's some holdovers of that, but there's, it's a bit uh, different. But long when baseball first started, you are with the team that you're with. There's no free agency. There's no option to go somewhere else unless the team
Trades
trades
you
you,
against
or
without any input from you.
right, right,
Hmm.
or they just decide they don't want you, and then you sign with somebody else,
Hmm.
and that's it. I mean, you couldn't even like not renew a contract. Like no
Yeah, I
other
mean,
team even had rights to you.
no, yeah, yeah. It's like you could either, yeah, and it's like, and choosing not to play like jeopardize your career because you would, basically you'd get kind of blacklisted a lot of times, um, if you didn't play. So,
Yeah, and so in that regard, like, it wasn't a true free market system.
right.
It was free market for the owners, perhaps, but the
Hmm.
the players had no part in that free market system.
Yeah. So I want to read this, and I'll be honest, neither Adam nor I are trained economists. Um, so we're trying, you know,
Yeah.
but this came out of this book. It's talking about Walt Whitman, great writer, 19th century, and here's what here's what this says. I think this is gonna be interesting based on what we're
Okay.
just talking about. Walt Whitman made the standard case for the first part of this story when he wrote that the charm of baseball derives from the respite it offers from monetary pursuit. Whitman's point is that baseball is anti capitalistic in character because it is played and watched for the love of the game and not for the love of money, to produce and see excellence and not to see mercenaries exploit baseball for all it's worth. Um, and despite the unprecedented commercialization of baseball and other sports in recent decades, people still can tenaciously cling to the ideal that sports like baseball are to be valued for something other than financial gain. In other words, Whitman's story is still, in a very important sense, America's story.
When was this book written?
uh, 2000. I mean,
Okay, so the modern era, I mean, like the
modern. Yeah, yeah,
free
yeah.
agency era.
Yes.
Okay. Well, Walt Whitman presumably wrote what he did at a time when baseball was like,
In its infancy.
right, yeah, where
Yeah.
it probably was that.
Hmm.
You're just like playing with the boys or
Yeah, it
girls,
was like
or the
it was like
friends.
Sandlot, and
Yeah,
like even the professional was not at all what it is today, or
yeah,
not even a hint. So,
yeah. And okay, so that's a different era, looking at
mhm.
baseball through a different lens.
Well, for
Eh,
Whitman though, but now this
No,
author
I
is
yeah,
yeah, is pulling that forward.
yeah, that's what I'm saying, is anybody who pulls that forward to today is just naive. And unless they're really truly talking about Sandlot baseball, City League baseball,
Hmm.
that kind of thing. If that's what they're talking about, okay. But if they're talking about pro baseball, they
Yeah.
just are don't know what they're talking about.
But so here's an interesting thing though, because he's sort of talking about baseball. as it gets complicated because, like, I know it's a business. I know there's business decisions to be made, but I'm very much like a nostalgic baseball fan, love baseball. I don't operate in my world of baseball, the world in which I coach and I do sandlot baseball for the kids. There's no monetary, like, I'm not paid a salary or
Hmm.
anything like that.
Yeah.
When I go to a game, I'm like, I know these Rockies player, like Rockies are in my backyard, but Mariners on my team. I know these guys are paid. I know it's a business and all that kind of thing. But when I show up at the ballpark, I'm there just to watch the game for what it is. Um, and I'm not there thinking about sort of the financial components of the game, if that makes sense. So how does that all I feel like that's some of what this writer is getting at is that yes, there's this business side, but largely from the fans' perspective, it is still very much kind of like that. Hey, let's go out and watch a game, have a dog, you know, have a beer, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, that's what you're buying.
Yeah.
Like Major League Baseball has uh leaned into that and is capitalizing on that experience.
Mm,
Like,
yeah, fair. Hmm.
and if you I think if we were to truly break it down at the MLB, we're talking pro baseball level here.
Hmm.
Um, MLB and those teams and those owners, they want you to have that experience, and they're designing that for you so that you will come back and you will buy
Hmm.
tickets and you will buy the shirts and you will buy the hot dogs and you will buy all the things, and you take your family and you spend $400. You take the family and create the experience so that you feel like you just described. I'm just there watching the game. Yeah, well,
Hmm.
you paid an entry fee, you paid the park, you paid for the jersey, you got the hot dog, you got the soda, you got all the stuff that makes it a comfortable viewing experience, and that's all been um, marketed
Mm.
and monetized,
Hmm.
and you know,
Yeah.
it's all about the dollars.
And I was just thinking there's kind of this interesting thing too, where in one on one hand sense, I'm just like, I want to go and watch the game just for the game. There is a independent league minor league team that is the same distance from my house as the Rockies. Now, the Rockies are not good, especially this year. They are struggling. And but with the Rockies, it's like that's the top. These are the best players in baseball. Best players. I mean, sure the Rockies are the worst team, but these are the top of the top professional athletes. Independent ball, almost like the bottom of the professional ranks, pretty close,
Yeah.
right? So, and it's like I think about I could go to that game and pay like $5 a ticket. Parking's probably almost nothing. I could, or I could drive the same amount of time, and if I hit it on a good weather day and whatever else, I can get dollar day of game seats for my kids and $4 day of game seats in center field for me to watch the best players in baseball. And so I have a hard time in my head going, yeah, I could drive an hour the other direction and watch minor league baseball, low level minor league baseball, or I could drive the other way and watch the best in baseball.
Hmm.
no question that the experience of the Rockies, exactly what you're talking about, is a more curated experience designed, with all the marketing and all the stuff they do. Um, so anyway, I just want to throw it out there because I think that this is this interesting thing where it's like, okay, if I was really there, just like to really like bring it down to just the baseball experience, isn't the minor league game like a lot closer to that?
Not necessarily. It could be depending on the setting and what you pay or what you don't, you know.
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, maybe closer to what you're talking about as far as like just watch the game, experience the
Hmm.
community vibe, like you'd probably go watch high school baseball
Yeah. Hmm.
or little league, you
Yep.
know, or like, like you're doing. Get the Sandlot going.
Yeah. Yeah. No fans. Sandlot.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. The the whole the anti-capitalistic. Yeah, because it used to be. It would be interesting to like go back. Obviously, we can't, but to go back and like, what was it like to go to a game, a baseball game, like in the late 1800s?
Yeah.
There was certainly a lot of hype, a lot of it was growing, it was popular.
Hmm.
And you had guys making money. I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of it's an interesting thought that, you have it within the system, within the financial system that it's in. Um,
Yeah. Does the book talk about maybe alternative financial systems? Like if baseball existed, say, in a like truly maybe communist or socialist
hmm.
uh society
Hmm.
where perhaps the owners of baseball teams didn't like make any more money than anybody else,
Yeah.
whether it's players or teachers or whatever. Like there was no um like it didn't operate like that. Then perhaps in theory, baseball
Mm.
would be a pursuit that is sort of like what you're talking about. Like people are choosing it for the love of the game, not
Hmm.
because, not necessarily because they're being marketed to do that in a way, and they wouldn't be marketed in a way that is for sort of like financial gain in the way that it is
Hmm.
now in
Yeah.
a very, capitalistic way. So then would baseball be different, you know? And if like a baseball
Mhm.
player got paid the same as a teacher or a doctor or a, sanitation worker, would those people still choose to play baseball? So then you
Yeah.
like this is where the
Mhm.
brain breaking starts to happen is like the reasons why people play baseball would be different
Yeah.
in a different society, and you would not necessarily be getting the best of the best
Yeah.
because those people might want to do something else. I mean, we hear
Hmm.
s- stories all the time about, I mean, I read and hear about this quite a bit when it comes to the NBA, certainly. Like there are very few players, percentage wise, who play for the love of the game. They play for the, money they make because that is how they can make the most money to provide for their family.
Hmm.
But if they could make the same amount of money doing something else, they would.
Yeah. So I want to answer your first question. I want to come back to what you were just talking about the NBA. I think it's interesting. So the the question you asked about, does the book address it? So not directly, at least not that I've read yet, but it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before about the Yankees and the Dodgers. Are they good for baseball in their spending? Because sort of what was implied before is basically that everybody kind of, at least for the time, everybody played nice. They're trying to win a World Series and there's rivalries and there's all stuff, but everybody kind of played nice and kept salaries down. You know, everything was sort of down. A lot of free agency, like the New York Yankees, became a big reason why free agency really took off, is because Steinbrenner was willing to say, yeah, I'll pay Reggie Jackson a boatload of money. I'll pay Catfish Hunter a boatload of money. And so um, Steinbrenner basically said, like, I mean, I'm not saying it was a communist system, but it would be like everybody making this big agreement, like, hey, let's do this financially. And Steinbrenner goes, no, I ain't doing that. And he does his own thing. And it sort of pushes baseball to more toward, he sort of really was as much as what um, was done by players for free agency, Steinbrenner making the choice as an owner to lean into free agency in a sense, like really sort of opened the floodgates for baseball becoming what it is today in many ways. So, um, I guess you make the call. Is what Steinbrenner did, the Yankees, the way that they treated free agents, the willingness to pay these guys what they like demanded, thought they were worth, is that good for baseball? You know, so I think I stand where I am today. Is it good for baseball? Probably in terms of professional, like it the money, I don't know, it's like the money then you pay for the best players. Um, unless you're Tampa or the Mariners, the A's or whatever. But there's a lot of complexities there. The thing about the NBA is that I'm curious, maybe you have some insight. It might be the same for baseball. If they can make the same money doing something else, they would. Is that in large part because of the physical toll that it takes on their body, or is just they don't like basketball? Like, what I'm saying
Yeah.
is like for me, I remember when, I mean, I don't know that I really ever had a real shot at all of playing professional baseball. I could have played collegiately. I wasn't thrilled about the idea of like all the conditioning, weight room, the baseball becoming a job. And so I didn't want to do that. So yeah, so that's, you know, and it's interesting because in a lot of baseball circles, when you hear interviews and stuff like that, there is way more like he does it because he loves the game. He loves baseball. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there isn't that, or at least my perception is football and basketball. It feels like that type of rhetoric is not as common.
Hmm.
Is that,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Does
Yeah.
that come out in any of your reading?
No, I mean, no, no, not, no, it did not. So I don't know. I don't know
Hmm.
what would be behind those statements by NBA players. Um, but yeah, when I think about your question of Steinbrenner, is that good for baseball? Yeah, it was, and is. And this also like the fact there are two parts, I think, in when it comes to baseball, two parts to the capitalist piece. One is the um I could pay what the market whatever I want to pay or what the market values a player at
Hmm.
and get all the best players. But there's also the other business side of it that's not about the product on the field, right? Like each of these individual teams are businesses
Hmm.
and their job, the owner's job, president's job is to make that business as much money as possible.
Yeah.
And they're just this off season, I was listening to uh to some commentary on the radio about I forget the team. Maybe it was the Rays, maybe it was the Mariners, talking about how spending more money on players to try and win the World Series is not a sound business decision for that team. So,
Mm.
you think
Yeah.
about like the Yankees and the Dodgers brand. It's a
Hmm.
global brand.
Hmm.
The more they win, the more money they make.
Hmm.
But that's not true of the Tampa Bay Rays. They'll
Yeah.
see a spike in sales, like if they're winning or whatever, like their bottom line will
Hmm.
improve, but it's not going to improve permanently.
Yeah, they're not going to become the next Dodgers or
Yeah.
Yankees. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if a team
Hmm.
invests, $500 million into players that help them win a championship, is the payoff from that championship worth $500 million to that team? It might not be.
Hmm.
So then is that bad for baseball that they operate that way?
Hmm. Yeah. It's interesting because, then every year you have underdog stories and, all that kind of stuff. So I think that sort of experience is, you always, there's always an underdog somewhere. So I think the unfortunate thing is when you have like the same teams are underdog every single year. Um, and this is so complicated because it's as a Mariners fan, it's so frustrating to feel like,
Hmm.
can you just spend a little more? And then hearing you say that, it's like I I can relate. I can get it from the business owner's perspective. Still frustrating. Um, and it's different for the Dodgers and the Yankees. It's different decision making model.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, and I don't know what to do with that. I'm supposed to do with
Yeah.
that.
So it's like when you ask the question, like when people ask the question, are the Dodgers good for baseball? That's not even really the question that they're asking,
Hmm.
because it's not about the Dodgers. Like if any team was doing that. would that be good for baseball? And the reason that it would or wouldn't be is because of the financial model they're playing in. And so, is it good for baseball? Isn't about the Dodgers. It's about, is the financial model that baseball operates under that allows this to be true and allows teams to operate this way, is that, this, and I think this is where sometimes there are these conversations about like salary cap, salary floor, whatever. So you're trying to even
Mm-hmm.
it out and create a different financial model that evens the playing field.
Yeah. Yep. Which, if you, I mean, sort of like if you wanted to even the playing field, you take away player salaries, you take away free agency, not salaries, but free agency, and you
Man,
have in collusion. Then you have like in the '80s, Tim Raines famously,
yeah.
you have collusion from the owners to keep salaries down. So it's like some form of that is sort of like kind of the way that you fix it. I'm not saying that's a good fix. I'm just saying if that's what you're trying to do in terms of bring the salaries together, like that, you have to do that sort of a thing.
Yeah,
But
maybe. I don't I, I don't I don't know, because you would have, as long as you operate under this model of teams are businesses,
mhm,
then what's happening now will always happen, just in different ways. So
yeah,
it might not
sure.
be like paying players salaries, but it
Mhm,
might be in the way teams recruit or the way they travel, or different
mhm,
things. It would be maximizing profits in a different way. So as long as you have a system
mhm,
that is run and sort of governed by business owners,
mhm,
that system is going to run in a way that serves their interests.
mhm. Yeah. Adam, this has been a great chat as usual. And as usual, we didn't solve anything.
No, we didn't.
We didn't. But we took a stab at it. We had a good time doing it. So um I thought we were gonna get, speaking of capitalism, I thought we were gonna get in some, some baseball cards. Teaser, not gonna do it this week. Maybe next week. It's been we just get it, we get going, and that's what we got. So, Adam, parting words for the week.
Parting words. Buy yourself a ticket, get out to a game. Pay a
Buy
salary.
some baseball cards. If you don't like the business, but you want to watch, there right now is peak. You got high school, college, little league,
Yeah.
um, minor leagues going. Find your cup of tea, the the boat that the water that floats your boat. Is that how you say that?
Whatever floats your boat.
Whatever floats your boat, and watch some baseball. So thanks for hanging with us for another week. Be at it again soon. See you next time.